Good evening to all. Today, let's discuss about dizziness and vertigo. First, we'll talk about the definition and the causes of dizziness, and then we'll talk about the approach to dizziness today. All of us must have seen these kinds of old ladies in our OP. They all have GAR as their presenting complaint. GAR irukku. So the presentation of giddiness actually is very non-specific. That's why we are confusing about this topic always. It can either be lightheadedness or imbalance or vertigo itself. So what is lightheadedness is? It's actually a pre-syncopal sensation. Just before syncope, the patient might be having lightheadedness because of decrease in cerebral perfusion. And this dizziness can either end in syncope or it can recover spontaneously. Another thing is vertigo. Vertigo is illusion of self motion. That is, நம்ம சுத்தி இருக்கிற environmentல சுழல்ற மாதிரி இருக்கும். That is vertigo. Vertigo generally arises because of asymmetry of inputs between the two vestibular systems. Let's discuss in detail. First one, the causes of dizziness. That is dizziness. Or before you talk about dizziness, you should have already learned syncope actually, because dizziness is always can be a pre-syncopal sensation. So causes of syncope are neurologically mediated syncope, orthostatic hypotension, or cardiac syncope. So only after exploring these causes of dizziness, you can move on. You can think about other things like medication side effects. Medication side effects means of anticonvulsives, sedatives, anti-hypertensive drugs. All these tend to cause giddiness also. Or our giddiness can be a result of gait disorders like sensory neuropathy or Parkinsonism, or it can be a manifestation of anxiety also. So most importantly is we should exclude the cause of syncope while evaluating dizziness. And vertigo. Before we talk about the causes of vertigo, let's talk about briefly about the vestibular apparatus. What I want to tell you is that the vestibular apparatus actually consists of peripheral and central vestibular apparatus. Peripheral vestibular apparatus includes the atrial and the saccule and the three semicircular canals over here, and along with the eighth nerve. So what I mean is that this part, the up to the eighth nerve and distally, is called the peripheral vestibular apparatus, and beyond that it's called the central vestibular apparatus. Okay. So accordingly, from the origin of vertigo, we can divide vertigo into peripheral and central vertigo. Peripheral vertigo causes, let me tell the names alone, later I'll explain in detail. It will be Meniere's disease, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, vestibular neuronitis, or labyrinthitis. Vestibular schwannoma also comes under peripheral vertigo. And central causes of vertigo can be most importantly, why we are seeing this slide is brainstem stroke. Brainstem stroke, vertebrobasilar insufficiency, demyelination, and vestibular migraine. Okay, so now let us talk about the approach to dizziness, which is very important. Why we are three questions alone we need to ask when a patient complains of dizziness or GAR. Okay, the one is first, is it dangerous? What are three main dangerous causes is, everyone can hear me, right?
Yes, let's proceed.
It can be what is the greatest cause of dizziness is arrhythmia. It can be arrhythmia, stroke, or a TIA. Meaning that when a patient is having giddiness, don't forget to take ECG and check his BP. Either it can be orthostatic hypotension, or it can be a part of posterior circulation stroke, or a TIA in the posterior circulation. Okay. So rule out the dangerous causes first. Then think whether it is vestibular. Whether it's a vestibular cause, meaning that is the dizziness actually a vertigo, and then is it central or peripheral vertigo? That's these are three things which you must see. To see these things, we need to read history and examine the patient. Now, talking about the history of dizziness. First, you ask whether the page is it the first episode of. Ask first whether it is the first episode. Okay. Yeah. First, you should ask whether it is the first episode of dizziness, whether the patient has previous episode. If so, elaborate the episode, and ask whether it is the duration of this attack and if there are any provoking factors to the dizziness. Right? Please mute your audio. Okay, it's disturbing the session. Okay. So why we are asking for first attack of whether it is a first attack? Because in case the patient is having BP, PV or vestibular migraine, he might have prior episodes of vertigo already. Because most importantly, the conditions like BP, PV and orthostatic hypotension, they last only for few seconds, okay, and they have provoking factors. They are precipitated by changing the body position and the head position. Whereas if a vertigo episode is lasting for more than hours or longer, it means it has other, most probably it can be a vestibular migraine or Meniere's disease or other central causes. If it is in the middle, lasting for some minutes, you can think about TIA also. Most importantly is very short and very long. Very short, lasting seconds is BP, PV and orthostatic hypotension. Longer things, you should think about central pathologies. Okay. Next is ask about the accompanying symptoms. Very easy, because if it's a peripheral vertigo alone, then it can be just because of they might be having ear symptoms of ear pain, ear fullness, unilateral hearing loss also. If it's a central pathology, some tumors are there, or a vestibular migraine, or if it's a TIA, patient might be having limb ataxia, numbness, or in cerebellar pathologies, there'll be limb ataxia and other neurological signs will be present. So don't forget to ask about the accompanying symptoms. So this is about the history you're asking. After that, the first attack, what's the duration of the attack, what are the provoking factors and accompanying symptoms. Next, you examine. Under examination, we are having just three important things. One is neurological examination, an examination of the eye, and tests of vestibular function. Okay, so under neurological examination, we need to talk about the cerebellum, because cerebellar strokes are very common, presenting as giddiness. Detailed cerebellar examination. Then the eye examination, we have four things to look up. Okay, in eye, look about check the range of movements, check for pursuits and saccades, alignment of the eyes, and spontaneous nystagmus. Okay, so first you check the alignment of the eyes. Means whether the eyes are in a normal alignment or not. In case the patient is having any central pathology, he might be having an palsy of the extraocular muscles. In such case, he might be having strabismus, which is actually masked by visual fixation. Okay, visual fixation nala and strabismus வந்து hidden-ஆ இருக்கு. அதை வந்து நம்ம cover test. There's something called cover test. We are finding out the alignment of the eyes by means of cover test. Normally, the eyes will actually look in the normal way. When you cover the affected eye, suppose the eye you are covering is the affected eye, because it does not have the work of visual fixation now, it goes back to the deviated position. Okay, and then when you take it back, when you uncover the eye, it comes back to the original position. You can see the eye coming back to original position. This is how we find out whether the eyes are actually in alignment or not, by means of cover test. Okay, then you need to check the range of motion. Then you need to check the range of motion, whether there's some extraocular palsies இருக்கா அப்படின்னு பார்த்துக்கலாம். அதுக்கப்புறம் check about whether there are pursuits and saccades. It's very important, because what is a pursuit? Actually, the ability of the eye to follow an object slowly moving object is a pursuit. And when the eye comes back to the ability of the eye to come back to its original position quickly, so that it focuses the next object, is a saccade. Okay, pursuit is the slow movement, saccade is the fast movement. This is impaired in case of cerebellar pathologies. Also, in central causes, there can be spontaneous nystagmus. So these are the four things we are looking for. And also, in cerebellar pathology, there will be two types of nystagmus. Okay, one is called downbeat nystagmus. The other is gaze-evoked nystagmus. Gaze-evoked nystagmus we generally check. No, while doing extraocular movement examination, the patient will get nystagmus on his own. Other one is downbeat nystagmus. Means that the fast component of the nystagmus is beating downward. There is upward rolling of the eyeball followed by fast component which beats downwards. And then one extra thing is that this Frenzel glasses. What is Frenzel glasses is actually, suppose the patient is having a peripheral cause of vertigo. Okay, so then there is peripheral nystagmus too. This nystagmus that is caused by a peripheral cause, will be inhibited by visual fixation. Okay. So in case the patient is not wearing anything, he is fixing on an object, so the nystagmus is masked. What we do is we are using Frenzel glasses here. So by means of using Frenzel glasses, we can examine the eye of the patient in the screen. And hence, if we are cutting down the visual fixation and we are seeing if the eyes are having nystagmus or not, that is the use of Frenzel glasses to avoid visual fixation and to see if the eyes are having nystagmus. These are the four things which we have to see under eye examination: alignment of the eyes, range of movements, pursuits and saccades, and whether there is any nystagmus. Next is tests of cerebellar function. This is a test of vestibular function, very important. Head impulse test or vestibulo-ocular reflex, Dix-Hallpike maneuver, and dynamic visual testing. So what is this head impulse test? Is nothing but vestibulo-ocular reflex. um, what is done here is we stand in front of the patient, make the patient to fix on our eyes, ask the patient to look into our eyes. Okay. And then you rotate his head from side to side, left and right, up to 45 degrees. If the vestibules are intact, then the vestibulo-ocular reflex will be present, and hence the fixation will be maintained. The patient will keep looking at your eyes even if his head is moving. But if his vestibules are not intact, then see, you can see that there is upon head rotation, the fixation has been lost. So in order to come back, the patient will again, the eyeballs will deviate quickly to the point of fixation. So after the head rotation, there will be a corrective saccade in the opposite direction. So why we are doing vestibulo-ocular reflex is to look for corrective saccades. Corrective saccades will be present in the opposite direction of rotation if that vestibule is impaired. So in case of unilateral vestibulation, there will be unilateral corrective saccades. If there are bilateral vestibulations, then there will be bilateral corrective saccades. Okay, that is vestibulo-ocular reflex or head impulse test. Next is the Dix-Hallpike maneuver. Actually, why we are doing this Dix-Hallpike is one of the important causes of vertigo is benign paroxysmal persistent vertigo. So, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. As the name implies, so is the thing. It is a benign. It's actually a benign thing. Okay, it's not life threatening. And paroxysmal, because the episode of vertigo is lasting only for a few seconds, 2 minutes. Okay. And positional. Why is it positional? Because it has provoking factors of position change. When the patient is moving his head with respect to gravity, I mean that when the patient is lying down or getting up from lying down position or turning from this side to that side, or he is looking up, at these times he's precipitating, the vertigo is precipitated. Okay. So what is the pathology behind this is actually there'll be we have the atrial. As you see in the diagram, there is atrial and it is having otoconia. Okay, otoconia is the calcium carbonate crystals only. On positioning, when the position of the head is changing, the otoconia from this part is coming to this to the semicircular canals. From the atrial, the otoconia is displaced to the semicircular canals, most commonly the posterior semicircular canal, and hence because of the displaced otoconia, patient is having vertigo and nystagmus. This is the problem. What we are doing in this Dix-Hallpike maneuver is we are displacing the stones and we are trying to see if there is any nystagmus to diagnose BPPV. The treatment for this will be Epley's maneuver, both of which I'll explain now. Okay, so in Dix-Hallpike maneuver, what is happening is it's just a two-step maneuver. Okay, what they'll do here is ask the patient to sit on the table, and you should make him sit such that on lying down, his head must not be supported by the edge of the table. Okay, you have to support the head of the patient and you make the patient sit. Turn his face 45 degrees as shown in the diagram, and then you make him lie down, and so such that the head is extended a little bit, and you maintain this position and you observe for nystagmus. If there is BPPV, then there will be nystagmus in this position. Just make him turn to one side and make him lie down with head and extension quickly. You can precipitate nystagmus and diagnose BPPV. Okay. The next test of vestibular function is dynamic visual acuity. It's nothing but you're checking the visual acuity using the Snellen's chart. Thing is that you are Snellen's chart. Thing is that we are moving the head of the patient back and forth. Okay, move the head of the patient back and forth and ask her to read the Snellen's chart. While doing so, if the visual acuity is decreasing by one line or more, then it means that the vestibular system is impaired. So these are the three tests of vestibular function. Okay. Head impulse test, Dix-Hallpike maneuver, and dynamic visual testing. Other investigations which can be done is if you found out that it is actually an oral pathology, then you can do audiometry, you can do nystagmography, and also if you rule out central causes, we need to do neuroimaging, CT brain or MRI brain. Any acute onset vertigo which is lasting quite long, which is severe enough, does warrant a neuroimaging. Okay, so in short, if I summarize, rule out the dangerous causes, see if it's a vertigo and whether it's central or peripheral. Ask the history, examine three things, mainly the cerebellum, the eye, and the vestibular system. Okay. Now, how to distinguish between peripheral and central vertigo, which I didn't tell you yet. Actually, if the vertigo is because of peripheral cause, then it will be both will be associated with nystagmus. This nystagmus will be unilateral only. Okay, it will be unilateral, and also it will be away from that direction of the nystagmus will be away from the affected ear. And whereas in central causes, it will be nystagmus will be present on both sides, and most importantly, there will be gaze evoked nystagmus in central causes. And peripheral causes, as I told you, there will be it will be inhibited by visual fixation, for which we need to use Frenzel glasses. Okay. And also, if any nystagmus is purely torsional or purely vertical, you need to consider central cause. If the nystagmus is only a mixed nystagmus, mixed vertical and mixed torsional, it's a peripheral. But when it is purely vertical and purely torsional, it means it's a central vertigo only. Also, in case of bilateral vestibular lesions, there will not be any vertigo, because I told you it's because of asymmetry of the two vestibular systems we are getting vertigo. So in bilateral vestibular problems, there will not be vertigo. Presenting complaint will be oscillopia and imbalance. Oscillopia means instability of vision, and the head is the visual field also tends to move when you move your head itself. That's called oscillopia, which is the presenting complaint in bilateral vestibular lesions. So the approach to dizziness and vertigo is done. Let me just tell briefly about a few conditions. Vestibular neuritis, it's inflammation of the vestibular nerve. What we need to know in this is that apart from other causes like BPPV, this vertigo will persist when the head, even if the head is remaining still, and it will be a very long vertigo for hours or longer. It's actually inflammation is viral induced, so it will recover spontaneously. If you are able to give glucocorticoids within the first 3 days of symptom onset, there are better outcomes. Thing is that we should, most importantly, any peripheral cause of vertigo, we should not totally give vestibular suppressants, because any peripheral cause will be compensated centrally. We need to give time for central compensation. Hence, you should not use vestibular suppressants for a long time. You need to encourage the patient to resume normal activities and give vestibular rehabilitation therapy. It's nothing but graded exercises that will help in central compensation of the vertigo. Okay, we have discussed BPPV already. I told you what Dix-Hallpike was the diagnostic maneuver, two-step maneuver, whereas Epley's maneuver is used in the treatment of BPPV. Well, it's just a 5 steps. It's a continuation of Dix-Hallpike actually. What is happening here is same way you make the patient sit. Okay, then asking the patient to turn to one side, and patient is turned to one side and sitting with his head turned 45 degrees to one side, and you make him lie down quickly with the head, and now you are precipitating vertigo. Okay, you are precipitating nystagmus. Wait for 30 seconds in this position until the nystagmus has stopped. Then you turn the head again this side. If he is 45 degrees to the right, then you turn the head 45 degrees to the left and wait for 30 seconds. At this time only, the outer cornea are getting transferred from the posterior semicircular canal back to the atrial. Okay. And then again, you need to turn the head of the patient alone to more 90 degrees, meaning that you are making the patient's chin face his shoulders. Okay. Wait there for 30 seconds. Now you turn the whole body of the patient to the same side and make him get up. ஒரு சைடா பார்த்துட்டு படுக்க வச்சுட்டு மறு சைடா இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் பார்த்துட்டு உடம்பே திருப்பி then you're making him to get up. You can repeat this manner on the other side also, and you can achieve successful treatment of the episode of vertigo. Next is vestibular migraine. It's actually vestibular migraine. Patient might initially had history of migraine headache, and now the headache has subsided and it is being predominated by vestibular symptoms. This vertigo is also very severe and it is lasting for hours or longer. It might be associated with aura and aura, photophobia and phonophobia. Thing is that we need to give drugs for migraine prophylaxis as a treatment of vestibular migraine too. In Meniere's disease, there is endolymphatic hydrops and there is pressure in the inner ear, and hence there is ear associatedly. Definitely, patient will be having oral fullness and ear pain. Most importantly, we can find out asymmetric low frequency hearing loss in Meniere's disease. Treatment is salt restriction and diuretics. An injection of steroids into the middle ear can be tried. Also, there are ablative and non-ablative therapies. Non-ablative therapy includes decompression and shunting of the endolymphatic sac. And ablation means labyrinthectomy and sectioning of the eighth nerve itself. Lastly, we have the psychomotor and functional dizziness. Psychomotor is what it's now the name has been changed to PPPD, persistent postural perceptual dizziness. The name is also present. The name is also self-explanatory. Let me tell you how. Persistent is because the patient is having chronic feeling of dizziness for 3 months. Okay, more than 3 months or more. Postural perceptual is actually a subjective dizziness. Which is actually aggravated by standing or moving or going to complex visual environments like supermarkets. Okay, what is the pathogenesis behind this is patient is actually it might be either a somatic manifestation of a psychiatric disorder. That major anxiety or major depression or anxiety இருக்கிற patient உடைய somatic manifestation can be dizziness, or it can patient might be having an independent vestibular disorder because of which he is very anxious and he is presenting to us as chronic dizziness. If you find out that the patient is having psychomotor dizziness, you need to give SSRIs and cognitive behavioral therapy and vestibular rehabilitation and not vestibular suppressants. So the common vestibular, I have told the treatment here and there. The common vestibular suppressants we are giving are antihistaminics, including meclizine and promethazine, Stemetil, and benzodiazepines like diazepam and clonazepam. We might also use scopolamine patches, and as given, vestibular repositioning maneuvers are used for BPPV. And for Meniere's disease, we are using diuretics and salt restriction along with steroid injections.